That's right, we're back again. No Jolly Rancher today, only gum. I will keep the chewing to a minimum as usual. I really need to get a new headset or something because I noticed in the videos there's like a rattling going on and I don't know where it's coming from. But City Council happened last night, so I am doing a full recap of what happened. And I had to do with a soccer stadium as usual. This is what a lot of people showed up for, but there was a lot of other things going on here. This is the very first time I've ever been in this meeting, and it was standing room only. Of course, I got there early because I know what the hell is up. But we had Indy 11 people there. We had some dog breeding people there too. Oh, look, I didn't even know who that. Oh, I didn't even know that person was there. I can't say his name, but that's funny. I didn't even see them. And some labor union people there too. So I'm gonna basically break down of what happened. So I get there, I sit down, and we all knew what was gonna happen. The city council was gonna vote on the um, soccer stadium, if that PSDA was gonna happen or not. So I see Larry Vaughn there, like I normally do, and we make eye contact. Yeah, that's right. We had a moment. We both smiled at each other. I was trying to see peeking around. Hey, what do you got on the board this time there, pal? And he was laughing the whole time. He had his full Larry Vaughn get up, which is always amazing. And he had quite a few boards this time. I'll run through a couple of them. One was Dr. Martin Luther King is a messy, muddy criminal. Next one was, what day is it? And then he flipped the sign, and it said, it's big, fat, juicy cock day. And then it's VP Kamala Harris, not spelled with a K, by the way, but like Camel Harris, is VP Kamala Harris a crackhead hoe, turns the sign around and says, checkbox, yes. Another one that says, listen to Dr. King FBI tapes licking assholes and sucking dick. And then is Eunice deceitful? And I didn't know what that meant, but on the other side it said, yes, with a checkbox on it. Very interesting. I loved it. The back here, if you can follow my mouse here for a minute, like I was all the way back here behind these labor people. And there was a bunch of Palestine people that showed up with their little Amazon scarves and their Xerox copies of Free Gaza with a heart on it. So I'm sitting there, and then they pull out this giant Palestine flag, and I can't see anything. It's really annoying. It's kind of the worst. And I have to deal with that for about a half an hour. And then you could see the ladies, they're all struggling. They keep having to switch arms. They're having to put their arms underneath arms. I was like, listen, I know you're trying to make a statement, but nobody can see you but the council. The camera's not even on you, and they can't even see you. Like, I don't know exactly what you're doing, so hopefully you posted a bunch of pictures, but they finally figured it out after not long, and they all start taking off. And I don't know if it was their leader or if there was someone, part of the group that was, I don't know, the hierarchy of the group, but it was some woman, City Miles, of course. They're like, oh, we're gonna leave, and it says we showed off our power, and it's like now they know. It's like, what are you talking about? Nobody knows. It wasn't even in the Indy Star. None of the journalists covered it either. So unless like you're gonna have your Liberation Center brag about it, then you didn't show off anything. Moving on from that, it was kind of fun. There were recognizing people or recognizing an organization. The first one was for some cop, and I guess she was like the third black female captain of IMPD. And you could, when they were clapping for her, you could see all the Palestine people like looking around. It's like, oh boy, we're kind of in a conundrum. It's like, first off, it's a cop, but the other part is it's a black woman. What exactly do we do here? They didn't clap. I clapped, of course. The next one was for some breeding, no more dog breeding, but then they postponed it until next month. And then the next one was for the recognizing LGBTQ plus 1234 XYZ month, or as Larry Vaughn would say, the poo poo and pee pee month. So I'll show you what our vice president of the city council decided to wear, because she's always going for the tens as usual. Our fearless leader of the Indy City Council, of course, decided to dress to the nines. That's right, Whitty dresses to the tens, she dresses to the nines. She's got her Indy Pride flag, shirt on, Festival 23, because I guess there's no Festival 24. And you can see the Ass Clown Brigade, the Ass Clown Battalion, all up there. And they basically just have the announcement of guess what month it is. Larry Vaughn will tell you. So moving on, Larry Vaughn did speak. This was actually the very first time that I've seen him speak in person at a city county council meeting. I've seen him speak last year during the mayor debate. Funny guy. Whatever your feelings on Larry Vaughn is, it's fine, and I understand it. He's not everybody's cup of tea. I was telling people that were sitting next to me, all the Palestinian supporter people, of like how funny this guy is, and he's always here. And I've seen him have a sign that had Joe Hogsett as a child molester. Still like top sign ever. Wait until next year. I might compete with him on signs. So we're just going to listen to Larry Vaughn. He goes on a little bit of a rant, but because you only have 2 minutes, it's not that big of a deal. One of the funny things that I saw there, because I'm all the way back here, Nick Roberts was actually laughing slash smiling at the whole thing. I thought it was funny. I don't know if he was laughing at the situation, or how some people laugh when they're uncomfortable and they don't know what to do. Because remember, this kid is like 22 years old. He lives with his parents. He has no full-time job. So he's been basically babied his whole life. He doesn't know what confrontation is. And when you have a Chad like Larry Vaughn coming up to the podium and whipping it out and just showing those city councilors, I don't give a damn what you think, you scumbag, corrupt Democrats. And he's talking about Kamala Harris being a crackhead hoe. Check off, yes. He's probably getting a little bit uncomfortable.
Mr. President, I can see the loose appropriation of these funds. We have a stadium that's going to be built in this city, right? Why can't some of the funds be built to get some of these young black men off the street so that they can go on this job and get their journeyman cards by the time the job's over? Why can't we set up a dormitory for 500 of these juvenile youths who are out here floundering, going to jail, doing dope, killing and doing everything else, to actually set up a situation and a way out for them wherein they can actually learn a trade? I mean, that's the only thing that saved me from this foolishness. But what we're down here tonight,
Last man,
I notice
Larry
all
Vaughn.
these programs that you're appropriating this money, their main instance is to sell dope and make more dependents. Why can't we set some of our young men free by teaching them a trade that they can rely on to make a living for themselves and their family? All the people that are in this room tonight, they're going for the actual dead bodies that are supposedly over at the soccer 11, the 11
Point of order,
stadium,
Mr. President.
and they're doing nothing to help
Point of order.
out the actual situation.
Mr. Vaughn, stay on point.
Occurring right now.
Mr. Vaughn, stay on point.
Thank you. That are occurring right now in this city, and that we need to do something about, and we can do something about it. Some of this money, at least 20 million of it, needs to be appropriated for a dormitory wherein we can house 500 black boys from our neighborhood that are out here sweltering, don't know how to do anything. Look at these members back here in the orange shirts. You think they're worried about their next paycheck? They got plenty
Point
of
of
money.
Stay on
Mr.
point, Mr.
President.
Vaughn. In fact, Mr. Vaughn, thank you. Thank you. Is there
This was just about moving money. It was like 33 million or something crazy like that. All right, next one. 5045. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a
yes,
chance? Thank you so
it
much.
passed out of committee.
Comment on proposal
And here it is
174.
again. And listen, I'm there. You can't tell by the camera, but he's laughing the whole time. I also want to make a note about well, we're gonna make a mental note. Make sure you pay attention to my counselor,
Mr.
Fiona
President, I just
McCormick.
want to restate my case from when I was up here last time. This money is being appropriated to certain 501c3 groups. And from my examination of these groups, their main purpose is to sell dope to our young men
Point of order, Mr.
and
President.
women. And they sell dope to our young men
Mr.
and
Vaughn,
women.
Mr. Vaughn, stay on point.
Well,
On
okay.
proposal
well,
174.
Thank you. But when we get right down to it, why don't we have some of this money appropriated for a 500-room dormitory so that we can get some of this crime off the street and make it easier for our law enforcement when they're out there dealing with illiterate children with guns in their hands? They would be better. The state of Indiana provides for orphanages. They provide for asylum forms for this situation. If we don't take advantage of it soon, I just fear that the money that we're appropriating here tonight is going to be of no avail to anyone, but it's going to mire this city deeper and deeper into having these young men, these young black men, not exclusively, but poor whites also, that are going to be mired in the justice system. They're going to be mired in psychotropic dope, which they're forced to take. And
Mr.
Look at Brown. She's laughing at it too, because she might be on the ketamine train, just like Jesse Brown. Brown might be sharing ketamine together.
Mr. Vaughn, we're talking about proposal number 174.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just don't want this money to be used as another distribution of dope.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment on proposal 174?
Oh man. Whatever, like I said, there are some people that don't like Larry Vaughn. I have really no reason to have any problems with him. He's one of the very few people that goes up there and he voices his opinion. Whether you like it or not is up to you. But we do need more people like that where they're able to voice their opinion. Which shout out Larry Vaughn. All right, so after all these got passed, but then the next thing was about the PSDA. So for those who don't know what's going on with this whole thing, just a quick recap. Indy 11 was supposed to build a stadium over by Lucas Oil. The PSDA area, which is the Professional Sports Development Allocation, I think, they got approved. It got signed last year. It even broke ground this year. And then they found a bunch of dead bodies. The number they're not sure of could have been anywhere from 50 to 700 or more. Who could say? And now they're saying that the MLS will not build a stadium on that property because they just don't want the outrage from the people. So now they made a new location, which is over by the Julia Carson Transit Center, I think, like right across the street, wherever, like where all the junkies and hobos meet up over across the street from the city county building. They've made that their new location, which I'm sure will be a great area for all the crackheads over there. So during this whole allocation area, it's a 1 mile radius. And once the stadium, this is like down the road if this ever happens, there will be tax money that will be incrementally going into a fund to take care of the area and pay off the developers. And if anybody knows about, and they're going to be using TIFs off of the blighted areas that apparently the city already owns, and they've already talked about the heliport that is part of it. But here is the big but. The only people that actually benefit from this are the developers. And here's why. It's all about making the money. And this is what I heard was 200. This is what Ezrol, the Keystone guy, he's wanting a $243 million tax abatement plus the PSDA, which could be $300 million, who knows, over the next 30 years. They wouldn't, and so basically Ezra would not have to really pay anything, and he would keep all the profits for himself. But who has to foot all this from the beginning? The taxpayers. The taxpayers always have to be the ones that are taking the risk on it, not so much the business owners, because they only have to put in 20% of their own cash into it, which I think is bullshit. It should be way more than that. And so my question was, now that we had the groundbreaking and we had all these things approved, how much did the taxpayers have to foot the bill for? And as far as I know, it's like $9.5 million. I might be wrong on that. I'm just letting you know I might be wrong on that. That is so far what I have heard, but I'm not 100% on this. So we've already used up tax money for the groundbreaking, the design, the whole enchilada, wasted resources, wasted time for the city county council, and now we got this other location. Now, whatever you think about the stadium is totally up to you. And here is my opinion about it. I do not care about soccer, first off. I'm not a big sports fan in general. I think it's a bunch of morons, millionaires that are getting their head bashed in, and we're just the clowns paying a crazy amount of money for it. It is just a circus and bread. That's literally all it is, and the taxpayers always have to foot the bill. The billionaires always make the money. The athletes always make the money, and we're just there getting entertained by these morons. Now, with that being said, is it any benefit to the city? Maybe. I don't know. But you're also talking about years down the road if we even find a benefit for it. Like I said before, the RCA Dome wasn't even paid off until a couple of years ago. We have another, 25 years until we pay off the Lucas Oil? No, it's actually less than that. But by the time we pay off Lucas Oil, the stadium will be 30 years old. I think we still owe like 600 million, between 4 and 600 million. So the question always comes down to is how much of a gamble do you want to take? And for the taxpayers, our only voice on that gamble is coming to these meetings and voicing our opinion, and then also voting for the people that are supposed to be our voice. So just for example, Jessica McCormick never replies to my emails. Jessica McCormick has me blocked on Facebook. Jared Evans never replies to my emails. Jared Evans has me blocked on Facebook. So these people that we vote in, these people that we give our hard-earned money to, aren't really the voice. At least mine. There are some people, Michael Paul-Hart, Josh Bain are two great examples that they actually reply back. They will actually give you a solid answer. And those are my two favorite city councilors so far. Everybody else is scum. Obviously, the worst one is Jesse Brown. Not because he stinks, but because he's a commie scumbag. But each of these city council members, not all of them, but some of them, will be voicing their opinion and what they want with this vote. So let's get into that, and then I will probably spew some more bullshit after that. But Kristin Jones is first up. This is in her district. Both PSDAs are in her district, and she does not want this second one to happen.
Chairwoman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Also, don't get mad. Don't get mad. She is really bad at speaking or reading. I'm not sure which one.
District Councilor, whose district includes the area of both PSDA maps, I am respectfully asking my colleagues that we consider this vote we're about to take tonight to remember
Don't
the
laugh.
oath that each of us took just 155 days ago. We swore that we would faithfully, impartially, and diligently discharge the duties of our office according to the law and the best of our ability. I would like to take a moment to highlight the duty of impartiality for a moment. To be impartial is to treat or infect all equally. which of course means that although one side may have more power, may have more prestige, may have more privilege, the other sides still must be carefully considered if we are to be impartial. So in this particular case, I believe the other side is our constituents. Over 2,277 people took the time to send the administration and this council a message for us to build 11 Park and to turn down this proposal before this body this evening. In my district, over 176 constituents sent me that very message. So for me to be impartial, I did receive a number of emails, calls, and texts from constituents asking me to vote for this proposal. That number's 2. 2.
Gross.
2 to 176. Or to put it another way, 88 supporting building 11 Park for every one opposed. So now, in order for me to be true to that oath that I swore to 155 days ago, we must consider the preponderances of voices in making this decision. Because the people who elected me did so to represent them. At no time did my constituents ask me to put aside my oath that I swore to and simply be a rubber stamp of approval for any administration. And that same holds true for every counselor sitting here tonight.
She thinks she did something. So that's pretty much what the problem is. Boy, look at, she thinks she's so fucking slick, doesn't she? Look at me, I'm a bad boss. No, you just have a hard time reading. So that's been basically the whole problem here, is that Indy 11 is on a burial site, an old cemetery. And then they are claiming Major League Soccer will not build a stadium there. That's the claim. And this proposal would basically start the new location, but only for Major League Soccer, not Indy 11. Don't worry, we got plenty more.
Councilor Boots.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke quite adamantly about this proposal in hearing, so I will not repeat my affinity towards soccer and what it's meant in my life and as I played as a much younger man. But suffice it to say, soccer holds a very special place in my life, and I've taken this matter very, very seriously, probably one of the most serious proposals I've taken in my 4.5 years here on the council.
Remember, Dan Boots and Kristin Jones did not want to reopen Indianapolis back in 2021, I think it was. Either 2020 or 2021. They didn't want to reopen everything, along with the other couple of council members, and just like John Barth. It's actually the very first video on my channel, if you want to go back and look.
But I'm incredibly excited about the possibility of MLS coming here to Indy. I'm excited about the 2024 Copa America. I'm excited about the 2026 World Cup.
By the way, that none of that stuff is guaranteed. Okay? You still, I get that you have to get the ball rolling for this, but what's the point of putting all that money into it and then you don't get any of it?
Coming here, and indeed, soccer is the world's game, and it's important that we bring it here to Indianapolis.
Is it? I'll take a baseball team.
And separating the emotions and trying to be impartial and be purely objective about it, I really see two facts that have really driven the analysis in my view. Aside from my affinity and emotional attachment to the Indy 11. I've been a formal season ticket holder. I go to many games. I love the Blue Battalion. I've been right in the middle of you all.
Hey, how does it feel to
But
watch them
and
lose
I
all the
have,
time?
The greatest respect for Mr. Ozdemir. But the two facts that really drive it for me is, one, and this fact we did not know in December of 2023 when we originally passed proposal for the diamond site chain, and that is the MLS will not grant a franchise to a MLS team that will play on the diamond site because of the cemetery issue.
Allegedly.
Professional
Allegedly.
sports league does not want to touch such a controversial issue with a 10-foot pole.
Allegedly.
Very simple. We can argue that. We can disagree with it. You cannot remove it from being a fact that the MLS has indicated that as much. And so I accept that as a fact, regardless of the number of the burial sites that are there. There could be 10, there could be 100, there could be 10,000. That's irrelevant to the fact that MLS will not come to that site.
Allegedly.
Also, combining that with another fact that the mayor has made it clear that this administration will not submit the diamond chain proposal that we refer to as PSDA number 1, will not pass that on to the State Budget Committee regardless of what we do tonight. So if we do not pass 175, PSDA 1 does not go to the state. Professional soccer, if MLS is our objective, dies here in Indianapolis.
Allegedly.
So therefore, after just literally hours and hours of contemplation, phone calls, in-person meetings, caucus meetings, and using the goal of landing an MLS team as our North Star, I will be voting tonight to approve Proposal 175 and encourage my fellow councilors to do likewise. Having said that, though, going forward, I will be calling upon our city and this council and the ultimate investor group, if there is one, to treat Mr. Ozdemir fairly and equitably, including if Keystone and Mr. Ozdemir chooses to sell the DC site to the city, that the city pay, at a minimum, the fair market value for the land and its improvements to date.
Did you just hear that? That part is very important. Dan Boots just said he wants the city to overpay for the property. You could say it's like, well, he said at a minimum. Yeah, well, no kidding, just pay fair market value plus the improvements on it. No, what he's indicating is that he wants to make sure his buddy, the guy that he has season ticket holder, or he used to, for Indy 11, that he's well compensated. He wants to make sure that taxpayers compensate this multi-millionaire.
For purposes of waterfront development, including a memorial site to recognize the hallowed ground of our city's first public cemetery. I also will strive for that the Indy 11 brand and tradition be preserved and maintained to the extent we can. That the statewide Indy 11 youth soccer program that benefits tens of thousands of kids across our state be preserved and maintained. And finally, that Mr. Ozdemir be offered the reasonable opportunity to participate in the new investor group.
Sounds like corruption to me. Does it? Oh, we want to make sure as a government that Ezra is going to be part owner of this. Hey, Bootsy, that's not your fucking deal, pal.
Even if only as a minority owner of any new MLS team that might come to Indianapolis.
See, this is why I really just despise Democrats, because now they're saying, oh, the government should force this new ownership group to have this person because he owns Indy 11. That's not your call, bro.
Personally, I will do what is within my power to affect these objectives. In closing,
In my power, I will make sure that Ezra will become a minority owner to whatever Major League Soccer team it is. No.
Our job on the council and also in my professional life is to tell the people what they need to hear and not always what they want to hear.
Dude, shut up.
That's often a difficult task.
Listen, Chief.
There's no guarantee MLS will come to Indianapolis if we pass Proposal 175 this evening, but there is
It's
a
almost
guarantee that if we don't pass 175 tonight, that MLS will not be coming to Indy for years to come, if ever. So again, I encourage my fellow councilors to approve and pass Proposal 175 this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Minority Leader Mowery.
Thank you, Mr. President. Kind of echoing off what Councilor Boots just said, I'm curious, who from MLS has said that Diamond Chain site would not be considered, and why hasn't that email been published to the council to see that that's something MLS said rather than simply hearsay at this point? Is there anybody in the audience that can answer that from the administration?
Anybody? I was there. Listen,
I don't see anyone.
nobody. They're like, everybody's looking around. It's like, oh my God, might this actually happen? And then, of course, nothing happens. I'm all the way back here.
From there, do you have an additional question?
Yeah, one other thing is I've heard is that if we don't do this tonight, we'll never have this opportunity again. I think that's a very strong statement, considering we've taken 2 bites at this apple already. Those were obviously declined. This would be our 3rd. So to say we'll never get this opportunity again, I think is very far-fetched, and I think we need to consider that. And in saying that, I want to say that I am happy to support the district councilor in following her lead. Thank you.
So just to give you a little bit of context, listen, I don't really trust PolitiFacts because, they're biased, obviously, but I did want to show this. There was the new Bill Stadium, which is going to be completed in like 2 years. The whole thing was it built on an airy Indian village, and your time is short. So no, it wasn't built on an airy Indian village. Was not located on the stadium's grounds, but it is located underneath the parking lot and near Abbott Road. And they're not saying that it was an airy Indian, but it was built on Western New York when tribal burial ground. So, so to say that, hey, guess what? We can't really do this. Guess what the Buffalo Bills are? And I don't know if you remember, there was a voodoo witch doctor that was trying to get the Saints curse a few years ago too. I think there was a burial ground. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that, but I thought there was something like that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Very good. Additional comments from councilors? Councilor Jesse Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank all of my fellow councilors for, I think, insightful comments on this, and I've heard good arguments on both sides. I do
Look at this buffoon. I mean, he's already ketamined out. My pause game is on point right now.
plan to be voting no for this new PSDA map for a number of reasons.
Look, check out them little stickers too, huh? Hey, he does. That's
exactly,
you know what that color is? It's purple. One can call it a purple drink.
Which Chairwoman Jones mentioned. I have received 15. So my ratio is not quite as bad as hers was. So I've received 15 people who reached out to me asking me to vote yes for this. Some of them are dear friends. Some of them represent labor, which is very near and dear to my heart. Some of them represent compassionate people who want to see the archaeology on the site done correctly, as do I. But those 15 people can't outweigh the 150 constituents who reached out to me. If anyone's on my email list, you know I write at length about what I think about things. All of those 150 people who reached out to me, I wrote them back and wrote down a long list of my concerns, which are not 100% in line with the emails that I received. I'm not wearing a Build 11 Park t-shirt here tonight, although I'm voting the way that those folks are asking me to. The folks that reached out to me were willing to have a dialogue. And although they filled out form, statements on behalf, I think solicited by Keystone, I'm almost positive, they actually have thought through this issue and have strong beliefs. And if we, in fact, have further evidence, and so we, as counselors, should be guiding our poor, benighted constituents who don't know any better, then I would, as Leader Mowery just mentioned, I would ask to write that down and present something as fact rather than just say, trust me, I was in a backroom conversation, and so I can attest to it.
That's kind of funny. Isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? Didn't he do the same thing to me? I asked, hey, show me proof, and it was, trust me? Dude, this hypocrite is the worst. One of the worst human beings there are.
I personally was not in those backroom conversations, and so I cannot attest to it. It may well be that this is the only shot for Major League Soccer. I'm unconvinced of that. If I were a Major League Soccer commissioner, I would
But you're not.
have every incentive to act like I had to get things exactly my way in order to create a new team in Indianapolis, whether or not that was true, especially if I wasn't willing to put my name down to a written statement attesting to the fact that I would not be proceeding with Indianapolis if the Diamond Chain site's the only one. Same if I were a group of investors wanting this to happen. I think
But you're not.
I'd maybe publish my name and tell the city who I am and what I represent and why I find this to be a better deal. That hasn't happened.
Hey, do you remember when the development company that was going to buy up the mall ended up, and he blasted them and tried getting them boycotted because they donated to Trump? Yeah, there's a reason why people don't list their names out there, buddy. This was also the guy that's trying to boycott a cookie store. And so if he's going to say, oh, you know what? You should put your name out there if you're an investor. Why? So we can hear you cry about it on Twitter and Facebook? You commie scum.
I find that remarkably suspicious. The worst, I think, though, is the used car salesman tactics that I've received here from the people pushing for this measure. I've been a homeowner for 15 years. I worked for many years at Angie's List and dealt with scummy contractors.
Scummy. Brown.
I've never in my life had a situation where somebody asked me to sign on the dotted line today or else I'd miss this great opportunity and for that not to be a scam. I hope that's not the case here, but I just have serious concerns with the amount of information provided to me and the amount of information provided to voters and constituents in this city. I sure hope that this isn't our only chance for a Major League Soccer team. I'm not a sports guy, but I think that would be great. I would love to see a ton of union jobs, and regardless of what happens, I will always fight for union to sit at the table, get good living wage union jobs for any development that happens in this city. I would also always be pushing to do the right thing in terms of the graves on Green Lawn's site. You know, I think it's noteworthy that the city, as far as I understand it, had private support from foundations, otherwise could not have afforded to take these extended, better initiatives for taking care of bodies.
Who? Who?
As compared to what the state requires under law. I would hope that we continue to solicit private money and city money to do the right thing and not just 6 months after agreeing that this site was appropriate, suddenly say that the owner is the only one on the hook for dealing with bodies respectfully.
Well, if he owns the site, then it should be his problem. Just saying, man.
The last point is, in the letter offering to buy the site, the Green Lawn site, the Diamond Chain site from Keystone, we mentioned that the city can only ever provide, we get 2 appraisals, right? We get the midpoint between that. That's the fair market value. That's what we can offer. About a year ago, I remember sitting in this room on the other side and listening to how we needed to give Kite Realty 82% higher than that amount in order to make the Signia Hotel deal work. So it seems strange to me that if we're so concerned about the bodies of pioneers, including some of the first black people in our city, we don't have money to spend and we are restricted, our hands are tied, and yet that wasn't the case when it came time to make a developer a lot of money to help rescue a project that they couldn't get through by themselves.
By the way, Jesse Brown was against the hotel. That's how he won. That's part of the reason why he won his city council primary, because he was against it. Then all of a sudden he was for it. He flipped it because he's like, and then he claimed to say, well, I didn't have all the information on it. Okay. Why? Because you just wanted to lie to a bunch of people, you scumbag?
So all in all, I've been extremely disappointed with the timeline, with how the council has been brought in. I would expect to be treated as a co-governance and not just a rubber stamp. And so that's what I'll be voting no today. Thank you.
Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of us actually had a chance to meet with the potential operator, Tom Glick. And Tom Glick, his resume, his experience makes this different, makes this entirely different in terms of his credibility.
We need to check his campaign reports next year.
I wrote down a quote he told us that day when he met with us. He says, they have the formula and the agreement to move forward, which means that if we create this special tax district, it gives us the kind of advantage in order to get the MLS stadium. This is a chance of a lifetime. There is no other viable option here. The time is now. And
We need to do some research on this guy.
this is bigger than one council district. I'm sorry, it is. This impacts the city as a whole, and it makes us. It will solidify our stance as America's greatest sports city by attracting an MLS team. Not to mention the
Another
hundreds of millions
loser
of
team.
dollars
That's
in
all.
downtown development. The downtown district just really sets us apart and gives us the competitive advantage. Let's be a part of history here, and I encourage my fellow council members to vote in favor.
I couldn't tell. You see this, there's like this yellow thing over here. I couldn't tell what it said.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Bain.
What it says.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very brief because I said a lot in committee about this, but I do just want to.
Okay, that look at Fiona McCormick, like I said before. She's obviously a very professional city councilor, and she's dressing like it.
Clarify the rationale for my
you
vote
voted
here
for it.
in the full council meeting, and that's the first and foremost. As a councilor, my duty is to advocate for the best interests of my district, our city, and its residents. That principle guides me on this vote and every other vote I've taken. This has to be about the future of our city. It can't be about the past few months or the past few years. It has to be about the future generations in Indianapolis. This is bigger than any one developer and any one ownership group. It is vital to point out, though, that tonight's vote pertains solely to determining the location of a potential future PSDA-backed stadium. This vote has very little to no risk for taxpayers, as it's important to emphasize that this vote does not commit us to financing or restrict our options moving forward for future financing for a stadium. All that would have to come back to the council later. For this potential stadium under Proposal 175 to be built, there are still many, many steps that have to be taken. We have to pass this tonight. It has to go back to the MDC, the Metropolitan Development Commission, for a vote. It has to go to the State Budget Committee for a vote, which is appointed by the General Assembly, has Republicans and Democrats on it. They wouldn't support something that puts taxpayers at risk. I wouldn't support something that puts taxpayers at risk. For any financing outside of a PSDA has to come back to the council for approval later, and there has to be an agreement between the city, the council, and that ownership group of what any financing would look like. And 5, we have to be awarded an expansion team. If we're not awarded an expansion team, no PSDA gets created, no penny is spent on a soccer stadium if we do not get awarded an expansion team. And when we consider any future financing over the next few months, it's imperative that we do not take financing that comes from funds that go to infrastructure, go to parks, go to public safety. You know, those have to be the top priorities of this council. It can't be to take and divert money away from that, and even money that could potentially go to those in an effort to build a stadium. Again, Proposal 175 does not do that. As in committee, I said I was uncomfortable with this whole process of government picking winners and losers. That's not the role of government. That's not the role of this council. It's crucial to understand, though, that this vote does not restrict a stadium being built at 11 Park. That can be built with private funding right now. But when developments rely on government subsidies to be completed, there are inherent risks that come with that, and we've seen that played out. It's not my job to advocate for any particular developer. It's not my job to advocate for any particular ownership group. That being said, I think it's crucial and very important that the current owners of Indy 11 be given every fair opportunity to be a part of any potential ownership group. And as far as what happens with the current Diamond Chain site, the city cannot stand in the way of any future development there. Rather, we should work hand in hand with our local developers. I do believe that continuing discussions around Major League Soccer are important for the long-term interests of our city and its residents. I received a lot of positive feedback since our vote in committee. I received one person reaching out asking me to reconsider my position. And for that, I will continue to support Proposal 175 tonight.
I'm sure, if I'm reading my notes correctly, he was the only Republican that voted yes for this thing. And I'm sure if I had to take a guess, he probably got a lot of heat from that. But, at the end of the day, like, Josh Bain is right. Like, there are still a ton of steps to do before there's even a vote on approval for anything. This is just the first step of many. The state still gets involved. I don't know how soon that would happen because it's summer committee time right now. So if I had to take a guess, it wouldn't even happen until next year. But he also makes a great point that the Ezra can start building on that site right now. He just can't get any tax money, which honestly, I prefer it that way. If you have a business and you're planning on making a bunch of money from this thing, I would rather you take the risk on it. That is yours, because then you're not worried about taxpayer money. I'm not worried about you taking my money and then you're making all the profit off of it. And to be honest with you, I think that's how a lot of things should go. I think there should be very limited on subsidiaries, on any tax money going to developers for certain things. I really don't like TIFs. Everybody knows that. But this is how it is right now. And this is the first step of many. I don't know if it benefits the city at all, and because we won't know for a very long time. And I think that's the point that I want to stress, that we don't know how this is going to turn out. And if anybody says like, oh, we're going to make so much money off of this thing, it's going to make the city so much better. How the fuck do you know? Honestly, you don't know. Like, I don't know if it would be a negative either. I don't know if it's going to be a positive. Will it be a focal point for the city? Or it's like, hey, they got a soccer stadium and everybody starts looking at everybody else. It's like, why don't we have a soccer stadium? And I mean, if that's what you look at as a benefit to Indy, then yeah, you would be right. But who's to say that we even would get one? I mean, to be honest with you, downtown is a shithole. There's all junkies and bums everywhere. There was a guy yesterday that was attacking a cop with a sock full of glass, and he got released. It's like, how is anybody going to feel safe?
Very good, thank you. Additional comments from councilors?
I think we got two more.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just two quick comments I wanted to make. One that's focused on the long term and one that's focused on the right now. On the long term, and this is really a comment that gets to if this passes tonight, if we're successful in getting an MLS team, if we design a stadium. I've gotten a reasonable amount of feedback from my constituents and passed this on to the mayor earlier today that if that sequence of events happens, that 20% participation is not enough for a potential ownership group.
Yeah.
If we have a group of folks who want to invest in an MLS team and they can afford to spend $500 million simply to just apply, I think they can give the taxpayers of Marion County a little bit of break and do better than 20% on building the stadium.
Yeah.
But that's long term. My right now concerns are less about the stadium and more about other things. So for what we can achieve right now, this process has made it clear that the administration will walk through fire when they want to achieve one of their priorities. So I urge the mayor and his team, after this vote happens, to apply the same level of intensity, focus, and relentless effort that has characterized the stadium debate to address much more important issues, such as reckless driving, to finally provide countywide curbside recycling, to be a leader on education, and to effectively work with the General Assembly on an achievable plan to have equity for our infrastructure needs. Thanks.
Equity for who? You really used this time to be like, hey, we should have free recycling. Oh, we should have, look at this smug guy too. Oh, we should have equity infrastructure. Hey, why don't we have enforcing the laws first there, buddy?
Very good. Additional comments from councilors?
By the way, that was John Barth was giving Larry Vaughn bedroom eyes after he got done speaking. I'm sure if he got up from that seat, there would be a giant puddle from underneath it.
Councilor Hart.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be brief because I think everyone's made a lot of really good points. For me, this came down to basically knowns and unknowns. When I consider the unknowns, again, I don't know who the investor group is, right? To me, that leads to a lot of speculative concern about who's going to be, supporting this from the city's perspective or behind
Michael
the scene.
Paul-Hart has some
There's
great
a lot of
hair.
unknowns on the approval process. We don't know that we'll actually have a team after this submission. It's very speculative in that process. What I do know is that we have a commitment that we made as a council back in December of last year for the Diamond Chain site. What I do know is that we have plans we had plans to move forward with that, but we had some in such regard that we had a groundbreaking. I remember that. I took my son to that event. What I also don't know is that what comes after from a financing perspective, because what I've seen what we've done with the Signia project, and I do have concerns for that as well. I've had counselors make the mention that we have to have another financing package come back to us before we make an ultimate decision. I've seen us make what I believe to be poor fiduciary guidance and the decisions on those hotel projects, and I would expect the same for a project that we commit ourselves to without knowing the fuller details in which what the second PSDA would be. What I also do know is that I had 50 letters of support come from my constituents in favor of Indy 11, in favor of the Diamond Chain District. I had 0 letters come from really anybody. I had the city administration come to me. Surely I've had some counselors come to me, but nobody that actually lives in my district has come to me and said, Mike, this sounds like a phenomenal plan. Let's go with PSDA 2. And then, as for the burial grounds, one of the things that, I also don't know and have an unknown is that whether MLS really won't build on that site because of the burial ground. I have no fact, no proof, no letter, no phone call. I haven't talked to MLS one time. I did talk to an individual who is affiliated with the MLS, and it's Tom Glick. His name's been mentioned. But
check the reports.
There's
Check the
nothing
reports.
with an MLS letterhead on it that actually states they won't build on the current plan that we've already agreed to as a council. So based on the unknowns and knowns that I have, in good faith for my district, from the fiduciary perspective that I look at it, as well as what my district has asked me to do as their representative, I cannot vote in favor of this proposal this evening.
There we go.
All right, very good. Thank you. Any additional comments from councilors? Seeing none, let us proceed to the board for our vote.
Oh, yeah, this is the new gal. I was trying to figure out why it said Allen.
Chairman Robinson.
Submit to the committee. I'll be abstaining from this vote today.
Very good. Thank you.
So there it is. Oh, crap. There we go. Whoop. So Robinson is abstained. Obviously, all the Democrats except for Josh Bain voted against it. This was what I thought was really weird. Maggie Lewis voted against it, which I thought was very odd. I didn't quite understand why, and I still don't have a reason why. So there you go. It passed 16-8. No big deal. It just continues and continues. And, Paul-Hart had a great, great response to that too. He's like, we don't know about this, the money. It's when it comes down to it, that's my biggest bitch is the money. Like, who's gonna pay for this thing? And Barth had a good point of like 20% isn't enough. And just for those who don't know, back in 2019, that's how this whole thing got started, was this PSDA. And I don't know, do I still have it? Yeah, here it is. So this started in 2019. I'll put the link on the bottom. But this was interesting too. Indy Star had an article that came out today, I think, June 4th, and it was the first paragraph was fun. Despite Indy 11 founder Ezra Ozdemir extensive lobbying, a state lawmaker who co-authored the 2019 bill creating a pathway to help finance a downtown sports stadium said the law is not tied to any specific group, project, or location. Mishler, we never said who for. And so the Capital Improvement Board are free to work with any partner that can pay for 20% of the stadium cost, while the rest will be funded by the taxpayers. Thank you very much. Not a big fan of it, obviously, but what are you going to do? It's just part of the deal. We just have to keep an eye on it, and I'll be keeping an eye on it the whole time. Like, I understand Counselor Josh Bain's position on it, of if it's going to benefit the city, which I'm totally understandable. I get where he's coming from, and I actually support both sides for the most part. I'm just hoping that there will be safeguards. That's my biggest worry, and I know Josh Bain will definitely put safeguards. I have a feeling Michael Paul-Hart will put in safeguards. Everybody else, you could say, like people like Nielsen and Roberts, they'll just do whatever Daddy tells them to do. They have no backbone. Same thing with McCormick and Evans. I do not expect any pushback from them. They're just going to do whatever Daddy tells them to do. So obviously, I will be keeping an eye on this thing. I'm hoping that you had a great time with me, because my nose was getting waterboarded while I was at the city-county meeting for the first hour, and thankfully they bailed out because, hey, we showed our power or some bullshit. But I am hearing that they will be back next month, and I am waiting for confirmation on a certain proposal. I'm not going to spoil it for you because I have no confirmation on it, this whole thing. And you know me, I refuse to spread any lies on anything that I can't confirm. So I will make sure, once I do know, I will make a video about it. I might just make a complete separate video as emergency video. Tomorrow's video will be the education meeting. It will be much shorter, only a half an hour, thankfully. So, until next time.